As firefighters and paramedics, we respond to those on the worst days of their lives. And when they're at their worst, we have to be at our best. And to be at our best, we have to have our house in order. I'm running for president of the IAFF because we have to be united. United for the future of this great union, for the future of our jobs, and the future of our families.
It takes a lot to do this job. Grit, sweat, sacrifice, belief in the future. And there's never been a time when firefighters have been needed more. And one firefighter has always answered the call to leadership, Mahlon Mitchell.
We have over 62,000 people there. Right now, they're trying to eliminate our voice. They're trying to desensitize us. They're trying to discredit us, and they're trying to defund us. And we cannot let that happen. I got my dream job when I turned 19 years old, and I never looked back. Firefighting is in my blood. It's in my family's blood. My older brother's a firefighter in Atlanta. My younger brother's a firefighter in St. Paul. One of our mantras is all hands working. Everybody on the scene is doing something to stabilize it, to make the lives of our community just hopefully a little bit better for that time. The future of the IAFF is here. It's time for us to stand up, rise up, and be united. It's time for us to be strong. We can do it together, with all hands working, leaving no one behind as we do with firefighters. Never forget that together we rise.
Mahlon Mitchell for IAFF General President.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our District 16 Town Hall. My name is Taylor Bullhagen. I'm a staff member for Mahlon's campaign for General President and will be serving as the MC for the call. Now, this is our 5th town hall of the campaign. We've had over 650 locals in attendance so far, and we're pleased to see that this event has a high level of participation as well. This campaign is about making sure that every local across the union has access to their general president and a voice in their union. We're excited to have you on this call tonight. Thank you for making sure you're part of the discussion. Now, a brief overview of the agenda this evening. First, you're going to be getting information on how to register for the convention. Then you'll be hearing from a district vice president and a local president on why they are supporting Mahlon for general president. And then after you'll hear from Mahlon and have a chance to ask him questions directly. We will be using the raised hand feature, which I will explain once we get to questions, but that will allow you to talk directly to Mahlon. You're also welcome to use the chat box. Now, we also have a few other town halls coming up that you can partake in. Districts 6, 13, and 50 is on Monday. Districts 1, 3, and 4 is on Thursday, a week from today. They are broken down by district. However, you're welcome to attend any of them, and we encourage you to do so, as well as invite other members of your executive board or local. Now, before we get started, I wanted to pass along, I wanted to pass along some important information on the convention. Max, do we have a poll set up that we can run through real quick? All right, so we're going to get a poll set up and we're going to shoot this out to you folks just to see so far how many people we have allowed to get on for the convention. But before we do that, let me just run through some of the, oh, here we go, perfect. So if you just answer this real quick, how many folks are registered for the convention? We have about 9 folks so far who have. All right, so it looks like a good amount of you have already registered for the convention, but it looks like we got about 10 people who have not so far, with about 10 votes left. All right, we'll give it about 10 more seconds for folks to fill out their answers. All right, so 25 of you are already registered for the convention. 5 of you have not, and about 6 of you are in progress. So that's a nice segue into our next little bit here, right, which is about talking about the convention. Now, taking part in the convention and casting your vote for the next general president has never been easier, literally. That's for a couple reasons. First, the registration fee has dropped substantially to only $100 per delegate. Second, all the voting is being conducted by mail. And third, the convention is entirely virtual. It's the first convention in IAFF history where pajama bottoms, or frankly, nothing, is acceptable attire. Now, every single vote in this election is going to matter. This is the first opportunity that union membership has had to pick their leader and subsequently the direction of their union in over 30 years. The contrast is clear, and we encourage everyone to take advantage of this opportunity and make your voice heard. Now, we're putting in the chat our one-pager that gives information on how to register. And if you have any additional questions, we encourage you to contact the IAFF membership department. They're there to help. So folks, once again, thank you so much for joining our town hall tonight. This is a town hall specifically for District 16 and federal locals, so we're really excited to have you on. Now to get us started, we have 16th District Vice President Johnson.
Hey, thank you. I just wanted to jump on here. I knew a lot of the district was going to be on here. And first, I want to thank Mahlon and his team for putting this together for the district. I know they're putting a lot of these together, and I think it'll be very productive to allow all of you in the district to get to know him and what his platform is. And look forward to listening to everything. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, District Vice President Johnson. And now next up, we have the president of the White Sands Professional Firefighters Association, Local 294, Dusty Warden. Dusty, you have the floor.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for taking an opportunity to join us for this call. Depending on the time zone, you're either fixing to go to dinner, eating dinner, or tired because you just had dinner. And so it's come, a mild sacrifice on each of you, but it shows your resolve as good stewards of your locals to get all the information that's required to make the right vote during this upcoming IAFF convention. With that being said, you're obviously tuned into Mahlon Mitchell's Town Hall, a specific town hall designed to kind of go over the specific unique needs of the federal firefighters, which we all have to abide by. But a little bit about Mahlon. Over my work over the past couple of years, we've sat side by side in the Federation of State and Provincial Firefighters. I've watched him do his work through the years, and he has a moral compass that points to true north, and it always maintains the highest of ethical standards. And watching him, he's always willing to ask the tough questions to get the information and the results to get what we need. He's demonstrated an ability to reach success across the aisles as his work as president of his local in Madison, Wisconsin, and president of the Wisconsin Professional Firefighters. But not just that, but you can gauge his success by what you've seen him do across the nation. He's offered a lot of support and assistance to other locals across the US and Canada, as well as the other state associations. He has an extraordinary list of accomplishments and a staunch advocate of small locals. And you're going to love what he says about his work, his plan for small locals, for the mere fact that nearly our entire 16th district is comprised of small locals with 100 members or less. And we've all had to make that tough decision of whether we send somebody to convention or we support somebody in their benevolence cause, or we only send one person to alts because we can't afford that $500 registration, and then we have to skip the DC, the LegCon. And these are the things that faced us for years. And Mahlon has an extraordinary plan, and I won't speak to it, I'll let him unveil his plan, that's going to help every one of us within the 16th district achieve phenomenal results. But he also has a great relationship with the Biden-Harris team. He is very familiar with the transition document that IAFF published and has learned every single cause that's been plaguing federal firefighters throughout history. And more importantly, in my conversation with him, he has personally pledged his willingness to tackle on some of the biggest challenges that we've had as federal firefighters. It's one thing to have the IAFF work staff on it, or for us to have this grassroots campaign to get out there to our congressional leaders and make something happen. But it is so much more important to have our principal officers engage congressional leadership and the Senate staff and say, this is what I need for our federal firefighters. And it's more than just lip service. You'll find in the chat here later on, as well as on his website, he has a specific plan for federal firefighters, more so than I've ever seen any candidate ever do. Not that we've had a whole bunch of candidates for GP over the past 20 years, but he has a plan, he has a vision, and he has the willingness to commit to it. And that's why he has my vote. He's won over my state, he's won over my local, and he's won me over personally. And that's why I'm here testifying in front of you today, why Mahlon needs to be your choice for the next general president. With that being said, I'd like to introduce our guest of honor. It's actually his show. Mahlon Mitchell, our next general president of this IAFF.
Well, thank you, Dusty. I actually couldn't have written that better, I don't think. So I thank you for that. I did not write that, just so everyone knows. But thank you to District Vice President of the Great 16th, James Johnson, for being on as well. I know you're busy today with committee meetings for the IAFF, so thank you for hopping on, and obviously stay as long as you like, and I'd love to have you stay the whole time. But for those of you that I do not know, my name is Mahlon Mitchell. I'm currently state president of the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin. We are a state association, about 4,000 members, about 60 plus locals. I'm also president of my local, Firefighters Local 311, here in our capital city in Wisconsin, in Madison. We are a local about 500 members. We have 13 affiliate members that are essentially contiguous to Madison. So my team and we're bargaining 14 different contracts at any given time, any given year. So we stay pretty busy with that. I've been on the job for 24 years. I'm in Madison proper. I work right downtown at our Central City Station. And I've been on the job 24 years, where I'm a lieutenant currently, where the place is where the lieutenant and the president of the union is housed. I also have two brothers in the fire services. You heard in the video. My younger brother is up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and my older brother is down in Atlanta, Georgia. So the fire service, the fire line runs through my blood. And for this call, as said earlier, this I think is our 4th or 5th town hall. And this town hall is geared just towards your needs as federal firefighters within the IAFF. And I'm going to get to your questions, and hopefully I have some answers for your questions. But as Dusty said, if you go to my website at mitchellforiff.com, you will see that we have a plan, and we have some priorities and legislative priorities that we're going to do if I'm fortunate enough to be your general president in the IAFF. And I didn't just put this plan together today or the day before we had this town hall. This plan came out 2.5, 3 weeks ago because I believe that we're all in this together as firefighters. And I've seen what President Trump has done to some of your bargaining rights, your due process, as well as your union time and some other things by way of executive order, which we'll get to later. And there's things I've talked about in my other town halls in regards to what he's done to you guys, and that how it will come down to us eventually if he were to have another 4 years, in my opinion. So we'll get into some of those issues, but I just want to talk a little bit about who I am and where I come from and why I'm here in front of you now, asking for your vote and your support to be your general president. I'll tell you, brothers and sisters, I believe that the IAFF is a strong union. Matter of fact, I believe that we are a big, bold, strong union. We have 324,000 members and some of the best men and women that you can find on planet Earth, in my opinion. We've organized 123,000 in just the 21st century, so we're continuing to grow. You'll hear other candidates say that we need to take back our union. I don't agree with that. To me, those are divisive words. I don't know who we need to take back our union from. I don't know who others think currently has it, but this is our union, and it's on us. And the onus is on us to make it bigger, better, and stronger for the future. But right now, as our union, we're leading the way in so many things. When you look at our cancer research, by way of our cancer registry, as well as research, our presumptives that are out there that I know that you continue to fight for, and I would help you in those efforts. You look at our disaster relief funding, SOP research, as well as leading the way in SOPs, municipal financial analysis, things I use back here home as a local president, as well as our GIS mapping and studies that we use. And at the federal level, you look at the Droga Act, look at safer grants and safer funding, as well as how our union was able to get in front of COVID-19 by way of us having public safety officer benefits. And unfortunately, we've lost, as of yesterday, 21 members in line of duty death when it came to COVID-19. But at least there's a peace of mind there that their members will get the public safety officer benefit. And that's all because our union fighting for what's right, fighting for things that make us safe and our families safe back here at home so that we can in turn make our community safe. I believe that we're the baddest union on the planet, brothers and sisters. I really believe that. We've turned it into a powerhouse. You look at the black and gold brand, which is coveted in our two great countries that we represent. You look at the Fight Back program, and we've taken a lot of L's here in Wisconsin, a lot of losses by way of legislative defeats. But we dust ourselves off, we get back up, and every time we get back up, the IAFF is there every step of the way to help us out. So that's why I believe that we're the baddest union on the planet. And that's why I know that we need a leader right now that's going to take us into the future, not someone that's going to talk about taking us back somewhere or taking something back that's already ours. You know, we have many challenges ahead of us. We have COVID-19, which we are all dealing with across the world. We have our brothers and sisters dying of cancer at crazy rates every year. We have civil unrest all across our great country. We have our brothers and sisters looking at taking their own lives because of the cumulative effect of what we see over time in our jobs. So we have many challenges that we have to face, but we also have many opportunities, in my opinion, that we need to seize upon. And many things that we need to change because of the past administration that's been in office the past 4 years. You know, in 2011, a quick story. We had an asshole named Governor Walker who came into our state as our governor. And he said, I'm going to come and I'm going to essentially divide the unions. These are his words. I'm going to divide and conquer. He was talking to one of his big donors in Beloit, Wisconsin. He said, I'm going to come after public sector first. I'm going to leave police and fire exempt, so there'll be some infighting there. And then later, I'll come after right to work, and we'll use a divide and conquer tactic with the private sector unions. I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, he did exactly that. He tried to divide and conquer us. And to some extent, it worked. But it did not work with us as firefighters. Because the governor said to me and my colleague, Jim Palmer, who's the president of the Police Association here in Wisconsin, he said, I don't want to see you at any of the rallies. I don't want to see you at the protest. I don't want to see any of your members speaking out against what I did. Matter of fact, I would like you to put together a press release to say you thank me for leaving you guys exempt. Well, we not only told him no, but we told him hell no, and that we would be at the rallies. And we were. We didn't just stand up, we stood out. We were at literally every rally, with our bagpipes, with our flags, standing up for our brothers and sisters in the House of Labor, because while it didn't necessarily directly impact us, we knew, one, it was the right thing to do, and two, they would eventually come after us next. And those are some of the things that I've told other brothers and sisters on these town halls when they say, well, if Donald Trump hasn't necessarily done anything to firefighters. And I always say, well, you should talk to the federal firefighters and see what he's done to them by way of executive order. That's just a stepping stone to what's going to come to us next. We've seen it here in Wisconsin. We've seen it with Governor Walker. So we stood up and we stood out. But I'll tell you what a lot of people didn't know, and why would you, is that our state association was at a crossroads. We had a district vice president that was not talking to our state president at all about anything. And we had a lot of infighting, unfortunately. But I'll tell you, when I became president in 11, probably had 7 or 8 locals that I sat down with individually, and they said, you know what? We're thinking about getting out of the state association. A couple of them were like, we are getting out. And I've asked, give us 3 years to turn around as a team. They said, we'll give you 2. So fast forward to today for time's sake. We now have every IAFF affiliate that's in the state of Wisconsin actually part of our state association now, Professional Firefighters Wisconsin. Even the city of Milwaukee Local 215, which is our biggest local actually in our district, 650 plus members. They are in our state association now as well. And they were out for 26 years prior to any of this happening. We started, and we talk about small locals, 90+% of our locals here in Wisconsin are 100 and under. So many things we do are trying to help our small locals be in the game and fight above their pay weight. So we started actually a statewide PAC. We bring in $80,000 a year. And how we got there, I've cut my salary, we cut our Secretary Treasurer's salary and others. We've given $1 per member per month back to the members. They in turn, because they believe in the mission and by way of resolution at a convention, assess themselves $1 per member per month. We now have close to $80,000 that comes in. Not a lot of money, but enough money for us to play in statewide elected races, but also, more importantly, give money back to our locals by way of local and county races so they can play in, as well as referendums, which we were able to pass 2 referendums this past cycle to get firefighters and paramedics on the job and increase staffing for a lot of smaller locals. We're also able to send boots on the ground by way of resources. We started a political action team to back up not just money, not just financial resources, but boots on the ground. We have a political action team that's thriving right now here in the state, and that's broken up by our 8 congressional districts. Essentially a strike team to go out there and help our locals at any given time. We also started our educational conference, which we've always had an educational and legislative conference that we combine every year. When I was president, we had 40 or 50 members, at the most probably 60 that would come. And we asked the question simply why? Why don't you come to a state conference? They said it costs too much damn money. It was $300 a pop. So we came back to the drawing board as a team, as an executive board. We've now made it free for 2 members from every local to be able to come to our statewide conference and get the education they need and the knowledge and know-how they need legislatively so they can take it back to their locals and work on behalf of all our members here in the state. I also believe very deeply that in order for us to be effective as a union, being involved in the community is very important. I actually started my union work coming from the charity side of things. I was our burn camp director for many years, 6 years, as well as a counselor for 4 years prior to that. I believe that as firefighters and paramedics, we need to see our communities outside of the emergency. We started a statewide charitable foundation from the ground up, having $0 in the bank. We now have close to $1 million in assets with 2 full-time staff at our state office. Speaking of office, we've actually purchased an office that makes us financially sound, not just for now, but for the foreseeable future. So I say all these things to not pat myself on the back, believe it or not. That's not why I'm saying them. I'm saying them because we were able to accomplish these things in a very tough political landscape, with Governor Walker literally having the ability to just sign one declaration, one piece of paper to take away our bargaining rights. And we were still fighting against him, but also internal fighting within the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin organization, where we were under an FEC complaint. We were under a Department of Labor compliance audit. All these things were happening, and we were still able to get things done. And all those things, again, were happening prior to me being president that we inherited as a team. But again, I stress the word team because we did it together. And that's, to me, is what the union's about. Brothers and sisters, we have the most important election of our lifetime coming before us. We have not had a contested general president election since 1988, to my understanding. We have to get this right. This will shape the future of not just now, but for many, many years to come and decades to come of our great union. The way we turned it around here in Wisconsin, I realize it's just a small microcosm of the bigger IAFF, but the way we turned it around was we came together, we did a retreat. We looked at what we all have probably looked at in our union, our SWOT C, right? Our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and constraints. We turned and reimagined our union, turned it upside down so we can look at it differently. But we started with one question. And the one question is so simple, but yet at times to carry it out sometimes seems so complex. And the one question is, what kind of union would we be? And what kind of union would we have? And what kind of executive board would we be if every decision we made was member oriented? If every decision we made at this table was about the membership, what kind of union would we be? And that's how we started to turn things around. And that's how I would have turned things around for our great IAFF. And again, I believe our IAFF is great. There are some things we need to work on by way of accountability, transparency, and some reforms that we need to make. But we have a great union. I would enhance the things that are going great and get rid of some of the bullshit, quite frankly, that isn't going so great. So when I say that, what do I mean? Well, when I look at policy and platform initiatives for the entire IAFF, and we will get to your issues, I promise. But when I look at IAFF initiatives and policies, very first and foremost is I believe that every member of this great union, every local should have the ability to collectively bargain. that every member should have the ability to sit down with their employer and have their representative sit down and talk about hours, wages, working conditions, and health and safety on our jobs. And I believe those that have collective bargaining, we should be the ones leading the charge for our brothers and sisters that don't. We need to work with stakeholders, work with other unions to have our backs. Right now, there's two bills in Congress. One, that's the IAFF bill that deals with the national collective bargaining, and the IAFF bill that deals with national collective bargaining. I think those two bills could be conjoined and be companion bills, but I think no matter what, our bill needs to lead the way because we've had the backs of SCIU, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, and others. Now it's time for them to have our backs. As you heard earlier, I have a great already working relationship with soon-to-be President Joe Biden. Kamala Harris, I've known her for many, many years. I've known her when she was Attorney General in California. She endorsed my campaign when I ran for governor here in Wisconsin in 2018. So it's important, and I don't say these things again, a name drop. I say them because it's important that our general president has a good relationship with the oncoming and incoming administration. I already have that, and I already have those ties together. I also believe when it comes to cancer, and I know in you guys' job and our job when it comes to PFAS and looking at our foam and our gear that we wear, and how when it gets wet, the retardants that are on our gear are essentially seeping into our skin, giving us cancer. The cancer registry is a great first step for long-term data for our members. But I believe we need to stack the meeting like the IAFF did when it came to NFPA 1710, 3, 4, 5, or 6 on a rig. When it came to looking at low, medium, and high hazards and our time to task analysis. Same thing they did with the consensus standards when it came to NFPA 1710 are the same thing we need to do when it comes to actually looking at our gear and how we get contract cancer as all firefighters across this great nation. And I believe the IAFF needs to be the catalyst in those efforts. Speaking of the catalyst, when you look at our brothers and sisters, as I talked about earlier, taking their own lives because of the cumulative effect over time of what they see. The Center of Excellence on the East Coast is a great first step for all of us. I will make sure that we continue the efforts to have the one on the West Coast built in California, in Riverside County, as well as the one in Canada, and making sure that our members can get there and make sure that we get our members the help before it gets too late. I will also work like hell to make sure we pass PTSI, PTSD legislation, and mental health treatment legislation that requires workers' comp, our states, federal government, municipalities, and provinces to actually pay for the help that our members need, again, before it is too late. Because we know it's not always about necessarily one call or PTSI or PTSD, but it's a cumulative effect as well as you look at alcoholism, drug abuse, depression, anxiety, all things that a lot of our folks see because of the jobs that we all do. I will also make sure that we as an IAFF explore a low-cost healthcare plan that all our members can get into. There are smaller international unions than ours that have that ability. I will also make sure that we pass what's currently in Congress right now that allows public safety officers to actually buy into Medicare at age 55. To me, that's a game changer for a lot of our members. But looking at your issues, and I just want to let you know that I do realize and understanding that your issues are very unique, that the people that make your workplace rules are in the Pentagon and they're in the US Capitol, that essentially your mayor is the president of the United States, which I believe with Joe Biden being our president, I know there's a lot of contention among our members every 4 years when it comes to endorsing a presidential candidate. But I believe your mayor or our president will be great for our federal firefighters and our members that are federal firefighters. And I'll tell you why. One of the first things that I would do as your general president is I would make sure that Joe Biden knows that we want to cancel the main 3 executive orders that Donald Trump put in place. And I've looked over those executive orders. I've talked about them with people like Dusty and your district vice president, Johnson, and I've got a better understanding of them. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know because I'm asking for your vote or for your support that I know all your issues inside and out. I do not. But I've done the research and I've done my homework so that I do have an understanding. There have been times, even in the past, before I was running for anything, being state president of the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin, I have a pretty decent, pretty good relationship with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, who was one of our U.S. senators. If you don't know Ron Johnson, which I'm sure most of you on the phone do, on the line do, he's the senator who is actually the chairperson of the Department of Homeland Security, which is under DOD. So I know and I've been called and I've talked to District Vice President Johnson via my DVP about some issues that are concerning you guys. And I'll tell you, the first rule of order, one of the first things I will do as General President is make sure I talk to President Joe Biden about those 3 executive orders and looking at how they change, essentially making a mockery of your collective bargaining rights and essentially taking things that were essentially permissive and now making them prohibitive subjects of bargaining. I will make sure we change that executive order around and take the things that they deemed permissive that they took out and actually make those mandatory subjects. And believe it or not, we've had chiefs here in Wisconsin that have done that have taken things that we have had permissive subjects of bargaining and made them prohibitive under some of the state statute changes that we've had. I would also make sure we re-implement our workplace partnership programs and agreements. And that's not going to be easy to do, but we can get it done by way of getting rid of Donald Trump's executive orders. Also, the union time. I know that you used to be able to negotiate union time as an officer in a union, but now they limit to that to actually making sure that you only get negotiated time 1 hour per member served, which is ridiculous, in order for you to get off to do the job that you need to do to protect our members and to bargain over health or hours, wages, and working conditions on behalf of our members. I would also look at the due process, the 3rd executive order that President Trump has put in place. And when it comes to due process and extending the probationary period and essentially taking away any due process for any member that gets terminated within that 2-year period, that's wrong. It's just ridiculous. And I couldn't imagine us having to deal with that here back in my state. So those 3 executive orders would be one of the first rules of order that I would put in place. Again, if you go to Mitchell for IAFF.com and you go under where it says my plan in the drop down, you will see that we have a plan for federal firefighters and the jobs that the men and women do out there on the front lines, taking care of our homeland. Some of my legislative priorities that you will also see in that paper. I know it's tough, and I know especially with the PFAS and looking at our gear that we wear and the AFFF foam and the training that you guys do, we deal with that back here in the States. But we have presumptives. You do not. Quite frankly, that's bullshit. You should have them. And every firefighter actually in the country should have presumptives. That's in our union. North Carolina also, they have no presumptive language. So I'll make sure one of my top legislative priorities will be to work with the president and Congress to make sure that our federal firefighters get presumptive language put in place, and that we actually pass the Federal Firefighters Fairness Act. I think that initially was put in place by Susan Collins out of Maine, or at least she was one of the main sponsors. So I'll make sure we get the Federal Firefighters Fairness Act put in place. And one of those provisions in that act is make sure you get presumptives that you need. And talk with the president to look at presumptives, not just presumptives, but injury and disability and claims, and making that a fair actual process for our federal firefighters. As well as, and I've talked with Dusty about this extensively, and I've talked with District Vice President Johnson about a little bit, as far as your retirement and essentially passing the Federal Firefighter Pay Equity Act to make sure that your 144 hours that most of you work in any given cycle, in the 72 hours, that your mandatory overtime is actually pensionable, and that you get the actual, not just straight time, but actually the pensionable rate when it comes to overtime. And that will be passed. And that's something that should be passed, because that's only fair. Because we, right now, if you're mandatory, if you have to work overtime and it's mandatory and it's part of your OT and TOR, then it should be part of your pensionable benefit. We have that here in our state. So I will make sure that we work like hell to make sure we pass that for you. And not last but not least, but you have a lot of issues. But when it comes to time trades and being able to trade outside of your pay period, when I first learned of that, I thought that was asinine and doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. But again, being able to pass that Federal Firefighter Fairness Act, the Flexibility Act, those things will go a long way, I believe. And you guys tell me when we get to question and answer, to making your job better. And that's what the union's about, having your backs on the front lines. So those are some of the things that would be my legislative priorities for you as federal firefighters. And I know we're gonna get into question and answer and talk more about it, and get more in detail and dig more deep and get more in the weeds about actually your issues, which I want to do, and I want to hear from you. But I'll tell you what I will do in my first 30 days as your general president to bring more accountability and more transparency into the IAFF. The first thing I would do is actually bring forth a retreat. And that retreat with our 16 district vice presidents, it's not a retreat for us to sing Kumbaya. It's not a retreat for us to hold hands or say, okay, now we're all gonna get along. It's actually a retreat to look at accountability, transparency, and reforms that we need to make in the IAFF. One of the first things I would do is I review every contract that the IAFF is currently in, and any contract that has no benefit to our membership would be taken away. I would also make sure that we sit down with every top level staff and every AGP and make sure we can streamline things that we can. And I'll make sure things like municipal financial analysis and other things that we use as local officers at the IAFF, that we can streamline things that can be done quicker and faster. I would also look at the 3 pensions there at the IAFF that we see in the New York Times, that we see in the Washington Post, that we see with all these stupid blogs. And these things affect all of us. I don't care if you're a federal firefighter, state level firefighter like CAL FIRE. I don't care if you're municipal or Canada. They affect all of us. They bring a black eye or stain on our union, the way that's been leaked out to the press. So I will make sure that we do a comprehensive audit of all 3 pension systems. And I'm going to release that audit findings to you, the local leaders, and the local leaders in the IAFF, not to the Washington Post or the New York Times, but to the people that are actually paying the freight. And with that comprehensive audit, we will make changes. I will do the same thing when it comes by way of our budget. Right now, the IAFF has a $75 million annual budget. $54 million of that is covered by per cap. I want us, I think we all should have the opportunity to know where the money's going, how it's being spent, and where's the other $20 million coming from. That's our right to know, because we are the members. This union is about the members. I would also look at our endorsement process. I have many, many conservative members here in Wisconsin, and we have them all across our country in our great union. And that's okay. They can vote the way they want. But I think we need to educate better. I also think our members need to, and they want to have they want to be able to be engaged in the process of who we endorse every 4 years by way of president. Our members look, okay, 4 years ago, they did a pre and post primary. We didn't endorse anybody. Fast forward to 4 years now, we endorsed Joe Biden, which I think most of our members knew we were going to endorse Joe Biden. They just did not understand the process. So what I will do is build a process where we have a baseline poll that goes back to our membership through our DVPs. Our members can actually be part of that poll. We'll take those findings through the district vice presidents, state and local officers. They'll come back through a DVP to our international executive board. And at that time, we'll make a more informed decision, and a decision that actually has our members in mind. I realize we are not going to please all 324,000 members. I mean, we could endorse, and I've said it before, we can endorse Jesus Christ himself. And we would have our members, some say, you know what, I don't like religion, or I'm with Pontius Pilate, or I like Caesar. So our members are going to not always agree. I get that. But they should know the process, and the process should be transparent. So that's another thing that I want to bring to the table. I want to give more power to the executive board, and that in turn, in my opinion, gives more power back to the membership. So when it comes to hiring an assistant to the general president or top level staff, I believe the GP and the GST can make a recommendation, but that final determination and the vetting process should go through the IAFF executive board. So those are some of the things that I want to do for us as an IAFF, for us as a union. And I'm asking for you to join me. And a lot of people ask, well, what's your path to victory? And I'll tell you quickly. I've been endorsed by, as far as east is Washington, D.C. local, as far as west is pretty much every local in California, quite frankly. Hawaii as well. Every local in New Mexico every local in Arizona, except for one that I'm still working on. But a lot of locals in Canada and a lot in between. So this race is going to be close. And as Taylor talked about, being registered only costs $100. So everyone should register, no matter who you vote for. I want you to vote for me, no doubt. But no matter who you vote for, you should be involved in this process because it's going to shape our union. It's going to be close. So I'm asking you to join me in uniting to defeat what's dividing us. I'm asking you to join me, not in taking back our union, but making our union bigger, better, and stronger. And I believe that we only do that together as one united IAFF. And I believe that we need a clean slate. I believe we need a fresh start. I believe that President Shapeberger should be able to retire with some dignity. But I also believe that we need a fresh start at the top levels of the IAFF to move the IAFF forward and truly forward and actually work together for the issues and the challenges that we have ahead of us. So with that, brothers and sisters, I can stop talking so that you can actually do what you came here to do and ask me the questions that you may have. So Taylor, I'll kick it back to you, man.
Awesome. So we're going to run through real quick how we're going to do the questions. So we're going to be using the raised hand feature that's located on the bottom bar of your screen under the participants button. Please click that and we will answer the questions in the order they are received. We will be unmuting participants once we call on them. If that does not work, please just ask a question in the chat, or if you prefer to ask a question in the chat, please go ahead and do that. We will answer as many questions as we can. We hope to get, or we will get through all of them. We'll stay on the line for as long as necessary to make sure that everyone's questions are answered. If for some reason you don't get your question answered or you forget a question and you want to answer it after the fact, please email Mahlon at mitchell@iaff.com and we'll get those questions answered. Also, if someone asked the question you were going to ask and you were satisfied with the answer, please lower your hand so that we can get to more questions. We also have a few questions that we received via email. We're welcome to go through the email as well, but if you want to just raise your hand in the Zoom chat right now and ask those questions directly to Mahlon, we can do that as well. So first all right, so it looks like we have a couple raised hands. So the first person we're gonna go with is a question from Reed.
Hey, Mahlon, Reed Shimobukuro, President of the Federal Firefighters of Hawaii. I know a lot of guys are going to talk about experience and they're going to have some concerns about experience, especially at the IAFF's executive board level. What do you say to those that, you know, have questions about experience?
Like as far as experience for me,
Meaning
someone else, or me, like experience for, you're talking about like your go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Reed.
No, what I'm saying is not being part of the IAFF's executive board currently, and then going from where your position is right now to the general president position. How important is you know the experience at the IAFF executive board level?
Okay, I hear you, brother. Thank you for the question, Reed. Well, experience is important, but to always remember that there's good experiences and there's bad experiences, right? I think the experience and where we are right now as an IAFF, and obviously it's my opinion, this is why I'm running. I think we need someone who's experienced great division, someone who's actually being able to weather the storm through great division, and not only at organizational or associational level, but also politically, because that's where we are right now. Think about it. We are at a crossroads right now in the IAFF, and quite frankly, the country, because we have all the issues that are in front of us, that we have to have a leader that's going to know how to get in front of the challenges and tackle them with an executive board, and also seize upon the opportunities. What I've done, and I'm glad you asked the question, because I always ask people, not just experience, but yeah, what have you done up to this point to get you before us to ask for our endorsement or our support? And I'll tell you what I've done. I talked a little bit about it, but what I've done is I've led a group of men and women through tumultuous times, and times that where it was so bad in our state association, and this is no joke, where there were locals and there were members that said, let's disband the whole thing, take what we got in assets and just give it back based on per cap back to our locals and be done with it. Those are trying, crazy times. And the experience that I have and what I believe is needed right now in the IAFF is experience in leading. I don't believe we need a savior right now. We don't need someone to come in and say, hey, I don't find a problem at 16. I haven't found a problem at 17, 18, or 19, but I see a problem now. And by the way, I'm the one that can fix it. I'm the only one that can fix it, and throw it in our laps. We need someone who cares deeply about this IAFF, someone that knows how to handle problems and situations. I am not saying I'm perfect, Brother Reed. I am not saying my state association is perfect. But us working together as firefighters, as men and women on the front line, and men and women that are actually fighting on behalf of those that are out there right now, on the street right now, that is perfect. So the experience I have is leading organization, and our organization here, through crazy, crazy tumultuous times, a tough political landscape, as well as a association that was just infighting. And that's what we're seeing at the IAFF right now. I think we have a very talented group of district vice presidents. I believe that we have a very talented group of employees and brothers and sisters that are working at the IAFF. Some that have worked in fire, some that have not. But I also believe that we need a lot more accountability and transparency at the top. And quite frankly, you look at experience. Experience is great, but we also need a leader in that position. And we also need someone that's going to come in and look at things in a different way and reimagine our union. I look at AFSCME started in 1932 here in Wisconsin. 1932. It was 63,000 plus members here in Wisconsin. 63,000. AFSCME now is close to about 8,000 members in our state. And a lot of those union leaders that were in charge of the city, county, they were experienced. And over time, where we are now, we have 8,000 members at AFSCME. So they failed to reimagine our union, look at their union in a different way, and have someone from the outside looking in, looking different, saying, this is what we need to do. This is the direction we need to go. So I believe the experience is great, but having someone new and a fresh set of eyes actually be part of this, be part of the IAFF at the highest levels is key right now for us moving to the future. And it's not like I just got off the turnip truck yesterday, brother. I've been on this job for 24 years. I've been involved in our union for 20 plus years. So it's not like I just started learning about the IAFF executive board yesterday or just when I decided to run. I've been at this a long time, brother. And I understand the ins and outs of what's happening at the IAFF exec board. I understand the pension systems. I understand our constitution bylaws. And I understand actually where we are right now as an IAFF. And that's why I'm running, because I do have the understanding. And I see that the need is great for us to have a leader that's actually going to give a shit about our members and actually go out there and convey that. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you.
So, hey folks, Taylor actually lost power, so I'm going to be filling in for him for a second here. My name's Max, I'm also on Team Mitchell. So I think it was Sister Ellen with the next question. If you want to unmute.
I believe there was somebody before me.
Brother Lucero, was that you or? Okay. Who would like to ask the next question?
I'll go if nobody else wants to. I just
There you go. Thank you. Yep, go ahead, please.
Okay, will you continue to make federal legislative issues a priority? I know you kind of already covered this, but there's a lot of locals that are not federal that we can never get buy-in from at the legislative conference or throughout the year to help address and get our issues passed. So how would you go about rallying them and getting their buy-in?
Well, I think one of the most important things is that when we have our legislative conference is that, a couple of things. One is we push every federal level piece of legislation to the back. And it's the very last issue normally. Believe it or not, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on the phone with you brothers and sisters, I would push it to the front. And I think that will go a long way into our other brothers and sisters actually recognizing, one, that the federal issues are important, and also that we need to lobby on them. As other locals lobbying on the 4 or 5 issues that are in that booklet. I would also make sure, I think it's important too, that we have, and I know that they've tried to tighten up the legislative conference so that we're not all sitting there in the breakout sessions and you go to the ones kind of that you want to go to. But I think, I think we could cut down, actually listen to some of these elected officials. If you've ever been to a legislative conference, it's good. It's my favorite conference, don't get me wrong. But we kind of it cart out like every mayor, every congressional person, every senator that, and try to do a good image of Republicans and Democrats. I think we could do less of hearing them speak and tell us that we're heroes and everything else, and more digging a little bit deeper into the issues that we're going to lobby on. And again, this is not a knock, not a slight. I believe the IAFF does a great job right now. But again, anything can be improved. So I would take the federal issues, I would put them to the front. And you know, don't ask me, kind of like going to Reed's question, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I've done. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll tell you what I've done. We have 13 affiliates, as I said, in my local. Those affiliates have always felt like they were kind of in the back burner when it came to Madison proper members, which are about 400, and all of our 13 affiliates make up 100. So one thing I did when I became president is I actually pushed their issues and their reports, affiliate reports, to the very front of our meeting after our stuff was done, or after my president's, vice president, secretary treasurer report was done. We would do committee reports, whereas before we would do affiliate reports way at the very end. And a lot of our members would just tune out that weren't part of those affiliates. So that's something I would do. I would also make sure that, you know, again, we get more in line with talking about our issues. And again, if your issues are in front, everyone that's sitting at the table is going to hear your issues before they leave the room and before the breakout sessions. So I would do that. But I would make sure that everyone understands the importance of lobbying on federal issues, because you look at, again, and I've said this, and I don't know how many of you were on the call, maybe none of you. In the last couple of town halls I've had, when members brought up like, hey, well, why Donald Trump versus Joe Biden? And Donald Trump hasn't been bad to firefighters. And I said, look at the 3 executive orders that he's done in just as short time as being president to our brothers and sisters as federal firefighters. A lot of our members don't know that. So I think, again, it comes back to awareness. I think it comes back to education. And to me, that all comes back to who's at the top. And that's the general president should lead that charge. So that was a long answer to your short question, Sister Ellen. Are you laughing at me right now, or are you laughing at something else?
All right. Can we, Sister Ellen, can we move on to another person with questions? I think maybe you had other. Okay. Brother Sheik, you have the floor. Sorry about passing over you.
Oh, no issues at all. So we talked last time, Brother Mitchell, and I'm going to ask a question before Dusty jumps on me this time and gets in front of me. But we are in a situation right now. We really don't know. We think we're pretty certain Biden will be our next president. But as of the last few minutes ago, I just saw 106 congressmen has jumped on this lawsuit with Texas, and now including Texas, 19 states are looking to get some of these ballots thrown out and try to overturn the election. If by miraculous chance that this happens, have you got a plan to try to sit down with President Trump, if he is still our president, come January 20th, and try to figure out how to work with him to ensure that we can get rid of some of these executive orders that he signed?
You know what, man? I'll tell you this, just being honest. If this election's overturned, where we are sitting right now, and Donald Trump is our president, we're all kind of fucked, actually. And I say that because that means our democracy has been screwed. So I mean, your issues are important. And I'm just keeping it real, man. That's the only way I know how to keep it. It's probably not what my staff probably is like losing their minds right now. I said this, but it's not because of Trump. If it were the other way around, I would be saying the same thing in all honesty. And I'm not saying it. If it were Donald Trump won and the Electoral College made him the president and Joe Biden is challenging it, and then we're going to get a presidential election overturned in the court of law, I mean, that we're all should be worried about that. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. That's our democracy. And if we don't think democracies can be overturned, I mean, we don't know our history very well. I'm not trying to be like it's not a scare tactic. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This has to do with our nation. That's a problem, man. So will I be able to work with Donald Trump if that happens? I mean, I wouldn't have a choice. But if we're in that spot that you just put out there, we got a lot more to worry about than the 3 executive orders that he already signed. I mean, we got a lot to worry about in our world, and that if that happens, brother, that's
It's 2020. It's
I know.
2020.
I know. You just made my heart skip a beat, actually. I ain't lying to you. Like you just scared me. But to answer your question, and I was being serious then too, but and I answer your question, the answer is yes. You wouldn't have a choice. You know, Governor Walker came in and he said he's going to divide and conquer unions. He left police and fire exempt, and he was our governor, our sitting governor, right? And he left police and fire exempt, but I would literally go and protest and rally at 12 o'clock with our brothers and sisters in labor there. And then I would come back to our state office and actually change into a suit and tie and go actually lobby the governor, who's a Republican, who was in his time one of the most anti-union governors in the country, because he actually left our standalone paramedics. So we have third service paramedics. They do paramedicine. That's all they do. They don't do any firefighter or structural firefighting, but they work hand in hand. They're in our union. I have 5 affiliates that are third service paramedics, standalone EMS systems. They were not exempt from the changes that Governor Walker did. So he took away their ability to collectively bargain when he signed that law into passage. But we were able to actually get a carve out for them, which we didn't ask for the first carve out, but we're actually able to get them carved out, an exemption for them, because of the way our state statute's written. They were not originally part of public safety. So we've done that. And I've worked on Republicans right now with our airport firefighters, and you look at our 3 firefighters that are actually in AFSCME right now. They are not carved out, but we've worked on a legislative fix for the last 5-6 years with them as well. And they're not even in our international, but in my opinion, they are public safety. And they cover 3 of our airports. So my answer to your question, Brother Sheik, is yes. I will work with Donald Trump because that's my job and that's my duty to do so. I work with Republicans all the time. We have a split government here in Wisconsin all the time, and divided government.
Moving on to the next question from Brother Lucero.
Brother Mitchell, how you doing, man? It's Brother Lucero here.
Man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Real quick, I guess I'm going to piggyback off other brothers and sisters here. Because we are, again, we're concerned with our retirement. You know, I'm 18 years vested. I've been union member for the whole 18 years. And I'm for you. I'm with you, brother, with the whole thing of new blood. Because, again, I'm a new president. I've been on the executive board many years. And I'm with you with new blood. Again, if there's something we can say where you're going to fight for our retirement, also not just retirement, but also something dealing with legislative of annual leave. You know, I don't know how you know how our annual leave works, and I don't know if that's something, maybe I'm jumping out of place here, but our annual leave, or sick leave, I'm gonna go with sick leave. We only get 7 hours of pay period. So it takes us 3 to 4 pay periods just to get 1 shift of leave. You know what I mean? We work 24-hour shifts. Well, we just went to 48-72. So just to get 1 day off, it takes us 2 months, you know, and that takes a toll on us, you know. A 60-hour employee, they get it, but 24-hour employee, 72-hour employee, they don't get that. And what are you going to do for us to help us get that more sick leave, to help us with our retirement? I guess the main thing is retirement, because retirement, if Border Patrol is able to get this, how is Border Patrol able to get this and not fire? I get it, they're probably a lot more strong than us. There's more Border Patrol agents than there are federal firefighters, but again, I think we mean just as much as Border Patrol. You know what I mean? How are we able to fight for something like that? How are you able to fight for us like that? Again, because believe me, I have family members that are Border Patrol. My father retired Border Patrol, and he was able to reap that benefit. And again, if you're able to fight for us for something of retirement, man, I think you'd really have us on board. Believe me, I'm with you, brother. I'm a new president. I've been here 1 year strong. I've been with the union for 18 years, and I'm fighting for my members tooth and nail every day. And I'm with you. But what are you going to be able to do for us to help ensure or fight or know that you're fighting for us for retirement? You know, because again, the federal sector compared to municipal sector, it's a lot smaller, man. And I think I know my bargaining unit, F299, Fort Bliss, Texas. I know people were worried about Texas. Believe me, I'm willing to back you up 110%, brother. But again, what are you willing to do for us, a 16th district, to help us for retirement? Because it sucks to say that I'm only going to get 40% of my retirement, along with TSP, along with Social Security and everything else. And to go to say that they're going to get, and it's all dealing with base salary, not what your annual salary is, what your base salary is, you know, and it sucks at the end of the day, man. You know, I'm fortunate to say I joined when I was 21 years of age. So I got a couple more years before I can leave. You know, I don't want to, but I know there's bigger and better things out there. But again, I'm looking out not just for me, but for future federal firefighters. What are you able to do for us, or how are you able to petition for us up in legislation? And I'll put it back on you, man.
Well, thanks for that question, brother. And I will tell you what I think is needed in the 16th district, in my opinion, is to be able to bolster the presence in the governmental affairs division. So I think Greg Russell, I know Greg Russell being in that spot, and being, I believe, it's my knowledge, and Brother Johnson can correct me if I'm wrong, but being in that spot, he was the first to actually be a federal firefighter, actually in the governmental affairs division. And he's done great work, in my opinion. And I know Greg, but working on the governmental affairs division and working on behalf of you guys and federal firefighters, I think that's a great first step. You asked me what I would do for the 16th district. What I would do is help to bolster and enhance what's happening for federal firefighters, and working with Greg and making sure that he has all the resources that he needs. I would additionally resource the district vice president. I believe Brother Johnson should have more tools and also have more of a budget, particularly because he's representing, I think you guys are 77 locals, but you're in 2 nations. So every district vice president, for the most part, has the same sort of budget. I would make sure that we enhance the budget of the 16th district, because you are working for at least 75 plus locals, and also in 2 different countries. But I will also enhance that at the governmental affairs division at the IAFF. And I believe when you talk about your issues, when you're talking about things like retirement security and your pension, and looking at like the Federal Firefighter Pay Equity Act, and making sure that you actually are getting paid on your pension and making this fair, so that all of your benefits, or all of your extra pay, I should say, or your mandatory overtime is actually part of your pensionable, and that is pensionable. I believe all those things, again, they start with having a president that is sympathetic to your needs. I'm not going to sit here and overpromise and underperform for you. I'm not going to sit here and promise you a bunch of things that I can't deliver. I don't do that. But I'm going to tell you what I will do and what I can do, and what we will work on, and what I will promise you that we will work on. and things I just laid out to you and the things I talked about. Again, go to my website. I didn't just put the website together today or yesterday. And I didn't add a federal firefighter paper because I knew I was going to be talking to you guys today. This thing has been out there for 3 weeks. I've been in a race for maybe, I can't even tell you now, a month and a half or so, but maybe longer. But federal firefighter paper didn't just happen overnight. It was studied. It was looked at. And I've had help from people like DVP Johnson, meaning that I want them to look at it, and Dusty. So it's serious to me. It's real to me. And I'd like to even go a step further. And I'd like to I'm all about organizing too. We've done it here in our state. And I want to organize those locals or those members that are federal firefighters that aren't in our union, that are actually part of that base population union, that are part of military installations, that are part of AFG&E and others. And I know there's an anti-rating. I get all that. I understand it. Like I said, I'm not new to this. Like I know AFG and others. There's no rating clause with the AFL-CIO. I get all that. I've dealt with it here in Wisconsin. But I believe we should have every firefighter that's in our countries part of the IAFF. So that's another thing that I would work on. Make sure that we bring them to the table. And that would also like build our numbers, and that would help us when we actually do go and do lobbying on Capitol Hill for federal firefighters. But my promise to you, brother, is that I'm going to be here as a sympathetic ear. I've already done things that don't affect our members here in Wisconsin necessarily when it comes to affecting federal firefighters in the IAFF, and working with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and working with our Department of Homeland Security. But so you have my word. You don't need my word. I've done it. I've already done it. So I will continue to do that and only enhance those things that are at the IAFF that are working on your behalf right now.
Sounds good, Brother Mitch. I appreciate it again. Whatever we can do to help you out, let us know.
You can vote for me.
No, you got my vote. Again, I'm telling you right now, you got my vote.
I appreciate that.
If we need to, again, tell our representatives, tell our senators, tell whoever we need to tell, let us know.
We'll do.
Just to help you out. You know what I mean? I got you. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Yep.
All right, moving on to our next question. We have Brother Dancero, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, good evening, Brother Mitchell. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
How you doing, James? I saw your face on there.
Yeah, you come a long way since sitting around the Hilton in Chicago, my brother. I wanted to just ask, I mean, from working side by side of you the early days of the burn coordinator program and knowing how dedicated you are and seeing what you went through in Wisconsin, I mean, I remember just sitting around with other unions saying, we got to pay attention to what's happening at Wisconsin and what's going on with that governor, because what he's doing is going to tear apart the union fabric. And we're starting to see that in the United States right now on a national level. So what my question would be is, with such a divided Congress, I know you have the support probably Joe Biden and Vice President Harris, but how do you perceive getting anything through Congress? Because that is really going to be the benchmark to get things rolling for us, like presumptive disability, PFAS. We need the laws to go through. Do you have any strategy or thoughts on how to just try and make any headway? Because, I mean, you know as well as I do, Congress's been broke for probably 20 years now.
Yeah. You know what, James, and good to see you, man. I thought that was you, but try to look at the camera and not look at individual people. But so me and James, just so everyone knows, we were, like I told you, I got my start in the charity side of things. So one of the positions I held was a district burn foundation coordinator for my 5th district. And I was the first of our district when that per cap increase happened back in 2008 or 9 or whatever for the burn foundation coordinators. But anyway, to go to your question, James, I'll do what I've done. And that is, I was talking earlier, we have divided government here in Wisconsin. I've never had a full Democratic legislature. I've had a full Republican legislature, but never a completely Democratic. Like right now where we sit, we have a Democratic governor, a Republican Senate, and a Republican Assembly, and they got the full majority. But we were going to get, if it wasn't for COVID-19, which we all say because COVID-19 sucks, but if it wasn't for COVID-19, our PTSI and PTSD bill would have been passed in March or at the latest April. And that's with having Republican sponsors actually sponsoring our bill. As I said earlier, the Speaker of the House, Robin Voss, who doesn't mean a lot to you, but he's the most powerful Republican here in Wisconsin. We're friends, actually. So I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. When it comes to our union, we support those who support us. It's about advancing the interests of firefighters through our legislation. So what my affiliations are, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you, I have friends that are Republicans that call me a liberal. I have friends that are liberals or Democrats that call me a moderate Republican. So I guess I'm right in the middle. So it's not about my political affiliation. It's about our union and the international, what we need done and how we advance the interests of our members. As I said, Ron Johnson, I get along with. Politically, we probably don't agree on a whole hell of a lot, but when it comes to safer grants and safer waivers and funding and trying to get our safer grants up to $1 billion and some other things that he's in charge of as the chair of Department of Homeland Security, he's been good for us as firefighters. He's been terrible at some other things, but when it comes to our issues, he's been okay. We haven't got everything we wanted, but we normally don't always get everything we want. So I will just keep working and doing what I've always done. That is garnishing and making sure we build relationships on both sides of the aisle. Matter of fact, I believe, and we do it here in Wisconsin, when there's a majority of one party in rule, that is the time actually to be starting just talking and building relationships with the other party. Because we all know politics is cyclical. So it's going to come back around. So when one party is in rule, I don't care if it's Republican or Democrats, you need to also start getting relationships with the other party because they're going to be in charge in another 4 to 6 years. And that always happens. And that's what we do here in Wisconsin because it definitely happens here in our state. And in Congress, we just have to work on both sides of it out. I mean, Mitch McConnell and others, we have to make sure that our needs are heard. And I tell Democrats and Republicans, we're not asking for you to come to our funerals, our memorials. They always like to come to our graduation ceremonies and pat us on the back and tell us we're heroes. Like, no, we need you to vote for us the right way when it comes to health and safety for us, our communities, and our families. And that's the message that we need to keep making sure that we're pushing and that we're honing in on when it comes to Democrats or Republicans. Did I answer your question, James, or you're on mute now, brother? There you go.
I just want to say, wish you luck. I mean, I think you answered my question, and I think you can do it. I think you can do it, brother.
Thank you. Taylor's back.
I'm back. Sorry about that, folks. The power went out in my house, and we lost internet for a few minutes, but back up and running. So let's hop over to Connor Miller for the next question.
How are you guys? Wanted to appreciate, send a thank you for doing this. You've touched on a couple times how the president, is pretty much our mayor. Congress is our town council. Kind of wanted to ask you, how do you plan on organizing our organized labor? Being in the 16th district, a lot of us have the power or the disservice of being in the middle of a larger district. So for example, we're 50 miles outside of New York City. So our congressman, when we go to talk to him, he doesn't want to hear from a 50-person local. However, we have one of the largest fire departments in the world that's part of our union living in the same district as that congressman. So how do you plan on giving us the power for our 16th district that's spread amongst a bunch of other districts to use that bargaining power, that organization as a whole for the entire union?
That's a great question, brother. And I'll tell you, the whole premise behind a union is consolidating our power. I mean, that is what a union is about. So if we're not utilizing all our members for one given issue, then we're not doing it right. And if you heard what I said about collective bargaining, the key, in my opinion, is in order to pass collective bargaining and get a national collective bargaining bill passed, which, by the way, it was the Democrats who were in power when collective bargaining did not pass. They had the majority. And it came down to one senator who does not ever vote for military appropriations. So he didn't vote for cloture for it to go forward for military appropriations because he always votes against military spending. But our collective bargaining bill was attached to that. Anyway, going to your point is we have to use our consolidated power and influence in order to get things done. So like those who do not have collective bargaining, it's our job for those that have collective bargaining to lead that charge and have our brothers and sisters back. So be in the front. Same thing with you guys. You know, I live in Wisconsin. You know, we're 4,000 members strong, but we're only 4,000 members in the bigger 324,000 pie of the IAFF. A lot of us look over, no pun intended, but a lot of us we're looked at as flyover country a lot of times. So I know what you're saying, but when we are working together and when we're leading the charge and we have leaders, not saviors, but leaders actually leading the charge on behalf of our needs, and we have a group of firefighters, it shouldn't be all federal firefighters going to the Capitol when we have something that's going on. I've proven I've done that already. When it came to Act 10, which was the collective bargaining changes that affected our teachers, AFSCME employees, SCIU, and others, we were there as firefighters on the front line leading that charge, even though we weren't affected. So it's the same thing with your question. What we need is non-federal firefighters like myself and others in the IAFF to be leading the charge for your issues. And that changes the vernacular, that changes the tone, and it changes the message. It makes us more on the offense as opposed to the defense. If you guys waiting for something to happen to you, no, we're going to be leading the charge for your issues. And that's what will bring us together as firefighters all across this country. But that also will make the sustainable change that you guys are asking for by way of these 3 executive orders, by way of presumptions, by way of getting your mandatory overtime part of your pension, and by way of us actually getting things done for the future that makes sustainable for federal firefighters. So I've done it my entire life. I've brought people together. And that's what we need to do in our IAFF.
Well, I appreciate your sentiment, and I understand that that's what you want. I'm going to kind of hold your feet to the fire here and say, how do you plan on doing that? How do you plan on us who are not members of state associations, who don't pay first district dues, in my particular case, how do you plan on allowing the districts to mold together and actually, bring our collective bargaining to a collective point?
So are you saying in state associations, or are you saying within the IAFF?
I'm saying in general, yeah, for anyone in this, this chat here, I saw guys in Hawaii that have, obviously Honolulu is a big city that's not a federal entity. Any of the people that have large members, organizations of union members in their area, but we're different districts, we're not in the same association, we're not in the same district. What's our plan to make us one union as opposed to a bunch of separate entities that are, working towards the same thing? If I want to send a letter to a congressman, instead of it being, 40 letters from my local, how do I make it 10,040 letters from all of the firemen that live in that congressional member's district?
I see what you're saying. Well, I think that's a good question. I think what we have to do is, going back to some of the things I talked about when it comes to our legislative conference, I think we should have more buy-in to state and provincial associations when it comes to federal firefighters. Allowing them to have a seat at the table when it comes to the state and provincial associations, that we meet twice a year. I would be all for federal firefighters being involved in that, and the locals that are within the IAFF being involved in that are federal firefighters. But I think the first step is making sure at the IAFF Legislative Conference that your issues are heard, and that our members that are non-federal firefighters actually understand the issues, not just hear them or not just blow them off, but understand how what happens to federal firefighters can actually affect us back at home. In order to do that, it's going to take time. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. I'm not saying that this is something that's once I'm president, then all of a sudden everyone's going to, all of a sudden those that didn't will now care about federal firefighters. But I think, again, you being more involved in state provincial association will make those changes. I think you having more of a say and more involvement, you meaning federal firefighters at our legislative conference, and bringing those issues to the forefront will actually help bring us together so that when it does become an issue, and I understand what you're saying because you're part of the 16th district, even though you live and work in a district that's bigger than yours and it has like places like bigger locals that are not necessarily in tune with IAFF federal local issues. I think the key is though that it comes from the top, and it's going to require the general president to talk about these issues all the time, not just when there's a problem, but also talk about it all the time. Same thing with some of our iLocals, and some of our, like we do here in Wisconsin with our standalone paramedic services. It's going to take time. It's going to happen. It's going to have to be a leader that actually talks about those issues and informs our members in a real way. And then it's going to happen over time again. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, moving to our next question here. We're going to go with Brother Biggert. Jerry Biggert, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hey, thanks. It's actually not so much a question, just so I've been I was a service rep for 4 years, and I've been a DFSR for the last 8, and I've been on our state of Wisconsin firefighters board with Mahlon for the last 7 years, and joined him in DC at the Ledge Conference, and been in every single meeting with him. And you know, like you all know, we have the issues book, and there's always a federal firefighter issue or two in there. And every single time, we don't leave that office until Mahlon goes through that entire issue that's affecting federal firefighters, explains federal firefighters to the legislature, and tells them how much less protected, how much less benefits they receive than a typical municipal firefighter. And I think his heart's always been with trying to enhance and make and educate legislators, at least from Wisconsin, on the federal firefighters. What we've done since COVID here is probably put on close to 15 different Zooms to keep our state together in an educational manner and keep them up to date on everything. And I would be shocked if when Mahlon's president of the IAFF, if there isn't a huge push on education conferences that are specific to the issues of bringing federal firefighters and municipal firefighters together in the same room, just like we've done countless times here, like just trying to get Milwaukee, our biggest local, into the PFFW after being out for decades, took an ungodly amount. Our own members didn't even want Milwaukee in. Milwaukee wanted to join it. Our members were saying, no way, keep them out. And it's just the ability that Mahlon has had to educate both sides on the issues, I think could play huge in having all of our members better understand the federal firefighters issues and really have some passion for them. And, you know, Mahlon talked about some of those Wisconsin legislators that, I mean, if I ever do decide to lose some weight, those 3 people's pictures would be on my refrigerator. That's how much they nauseate me. But somehow Mahlon has figured out a way to get presumptive legislation done, to keep us out of being lumped into right to work, and still maintain his credibility as a moderate person and willing to talk with both sides on any issue, and never lets his frustration and anger for some of these despicable politicians sour his approach, because the end game is what's best for all of our members, whether they're paramedics, firefighters, and in this instance, federal firefighters or municipal firefighters. I've just seen it for 7 years, and I just pop onto all of these and listen because I love to hear the different issues around the country. And I just want to say that for those of you that will support Mahlon, it's going to be a huge difference in your issues, in my opinion. So thank you. So no questions, just a little diatribe.
Thanks, Jerry. Just so everyone knows, that was not planned, but I didn't know Jerry was on, but thanks. But we talked about the Ledge Conference, and I think it was Sister Taska who asked the question before, but she had sent me some questions about having, a separate Ledge Conference for federal firefighters, I believe in the fall. Was that right, Taska? You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I wanted to know if you would consider holding a second legislative conference in the fall just for federal locals, since Congress is basically our city hall. And along with that, a secondary part of, would you continue to hold the federal breakout session at the annual legislative conference?
The answer to both of those is yes and yes. And I would, I think that's a great idea. I really do. And I was gonna say it, but I didn't want to act like I'm taking your idea and making my own. But it came from your questions. And that is a great idea. You talk, obviously, yes, we would do the breakout sessions, but I think more importantly is having that separate legislative conference. And I think having that conference though, but also making it more affordable to get there, I think is the second step. Because DC, as we know, no matter what time of year you go, especially when you go down to cherry blossoms, wherever the hell that is, I don't even get that, but it's a thing. I don't know why people want to go and see these trees blossom. But I mean, the rooms are like $400 or $500. It's unbelievable. We wouldn't do it during cherry blossom season. That's in the spring anyway. But yes, in the fall, I believe having a separate, because like you said, the Capitol is your city hall. So having a separate breakout session, or not breakout session, but a separate lobbying conference would be fantastic. And again, we got to make it affordable though to get there. And I would work on that as well. What I've done for here in the state, we've done some things with scholarship programs where if you go to our state educational legislative leadership conference, which we call WALTS, our training summit, if you're a local of 100 and under in size, you can actually apply to go to ALTS, and we pay for your flight, your hotel, as well as your registration, a local 100 and under in size. And we would continue. That's something I would want to bring to the IAFF.
Okay, moving on.
Where's Taylor at?
He's had.
I'm here. We can. I can hop in for the time being. I'm afraid I might lose internet again. So if that happens.
Nothing against you, Max. I'm sorry.
President Warden actually wanted to just step in there, and then we can get back to the questioning. So
sure, let's get President Warden.
Really quick, I just wanted to kind of follow up to Brother Colin's question, is how do you employ 320,000 firefighters to kind of sing the praises and carry the torch for the 3,500 firefighters? And we've had some really good discussions, and that's kind of creating a pathway from the top down for inclusiveness. State associations are very important. They're powerful. They're very resourced, and their leadership is very articulate in many of the issues, and you'll find them at most of the conferences. You'll find them at LegCon. You'll find them at Redmond. And there are some districts, the geographical districts, and there are some state associations that are very expensive, and they are very, or not even inclusive. They're not interested in helping federal firefighters. And after having a very good conversation with Brother Mahlon, providing the support to state associations to fill out the additional sheets of paper through the Department of Labor to get them to admit federal firefighters into the state association would be instrumental. And we can incentivize that in some sort of fashion to where it's to their advantage to have federal firefighters within their state association. And for state associations that are resistant, or for the DVPs of the various geographical districts that give pushback, we can offer the additional support and resources they need to put into it. But what you can do as a federal local is work with those state associations. And if they're still pushing back, there's constitution and bylaws. You can find people that'll help you through these situations to where you can, I don't want to say force your way into it, but have a seat at the table, because it's very important. I can say that California and New Mexico have led the charge of bringing federal firefighters to their table, and it has been extraordinarily important. And every state has their own way of offering inclusiveness, whether it be a directorship or a vice president's position or a staff job. Just being there and being visible and letting people understand what our concerns are, it'll show some empathy, or you'll be able to you'll gain their empathy and perhaps additional support. But if you don't go, and if you don't participate, and you don't have that seat at the table, you'll be dismissed every single time. And I don't want to speak for Mahlon, but he's pledged a commitment to emphasize the importance of this inclusiveness in the geographical districts, in the state associations. We also have the joint council. There are plenty of opportunities that some of them are not fully utilized that we will utilize. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Dusty. Amelia, did you want to hop in there?
I'll do it later. I want to take questions. I've talked
Sure.
enough.
Let's hop over to Dusty Miller for our next question.
Hi, Mahlon. Dusty Miller, Vice President, Puget Sound Federal Firefighters, Local F282. I actually have two questions for you. First one should be pretty quick. The first question I have, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, and first of all, let me just preface this by telling you I'm asking as a general dues paying member and not as an affiliate leader of the 16th district, because I don't want to put our vice president or any of our DSFRs under any type of heat or anything for what I'm about to ask. But first one isn't too bad. But from where I sit, you appear to be, the GST appears to be the front runner. He's got more recognition. He is a very dynamic, albeit uncouth speaker sometimes, which firefighters are often drawn to, much like our president sometimes. And I don't know if that's just because firefighters are drawn to somebody that can tend to overpromise, but you are more professional and businesslike. My first question is, how do you plan to combat that if my local and or our district endorses you? I don't want to see any negative retribution, and I'm not saying the GST would, but there are or can be consequences for locals or districts that choose to support a losing candidate. So how do you plan to counteract that?
So I want to make sure I have your question correct. You mean, I'm not, if I don't answer it, just tell me, but I'm gonna think I'm gonna answer it. You spoke about, I think you're talking about Brother Kelly, and how he carries himself. And I can't speak for him. I mean, I can only speak for myself. I am who I am and the way I was raised. I mean, my mother and father raised me to be respectful of people and be a decent human being. So I am who I am, and I'm not changing that for anybody, not for a vote, not for nothing. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I have a vision for this IAFF, and I'm running to put forth my vision. And at the end of the day, the members are going to decide. That's why we're a representative democracy, where our members decide who they would like to serve them. If they choose to have Brother Kelly serve them, I'll be the first person shaking his hand and say, anything you need, I will be there to help you. I'm not running an anti-Edzo campaign, Brother Miller. I'm running because I believe I'm the right person for the job. And at the end of the day, the members will decide who they want to represent them. If they want someone that is not professional, not that you're saying that, but if they, I mean, I'm professional, I guess you say I'm professional because the way I carry myself is because it's the way I was raised. I wasn't raised as a professional. I was raised as a decent human being and as a man. And this is just who I am. And I'm not trying to change. I'm not going to change it for you. I'm not changing for anybody. Not that you're asking that, but I mean, I guess to go to your question, I am who I am because the way I was raised. Brother Kelly is the way he is, and he curses and swears. That's fine, because that's the way he was raised. I don't know. I mean, I can't answer for that. But as far as retribution, if you don't support me and I win, I will work my ass off for you. I can't say, I can't speak for anyone else. There's actually 3 folks in this race, but I'm gonna work my ass off for you. And that's just who I am. You know, I just a case in point again, I can tell you what I've done. You know, Milwaukee Local 215, our biggest local in our state. I ran for lieutenant governor, and they actually endorsed my opponent. This is before they were in the state association. They endorsed my opponent. Matter of fact, they had her in their office and they gave her a red helmet with the IAFF Maltese cross behind them endorsing her. They got a call from the IAFF. They got a call from political department, obviously, others from around the state saying, how the hell can you do that? They got a call from many, many locals like yourselves saying, how the hell can you do that? We're like, we're all sending money into this. It's against Scott Walker. They endorsed Scott Walker's deputy. Well, elections handle themselves. The first call I made after that election was actually to Milwaukee Local 215 president to bring them in our state association. Many of my members, I don't know if they are online, will tell you that they thought that was nuts. Because how could you go with them after they did that to you? Well, it wasn't about me. It was about the betterment of this organization. So again, to answer your question, I hope I'm answering, is that I am who I am. Many people on the line know me. And those that don't know me, that's why I'm having this Zoom call, so that you get to know me a little bit. It's hard to get to know someone through a Zoom, but you have my guarantee in a couple of things. One is, if I'm your president, we will have federal firefighter and 16 district Zooms like this at the minimum 4 times a year, where you will be able to tell me and talk to me about what your issues are. But you also have a guarantee for me that what you see is what you're going to get. And I was raised by William and Mary Mitchell, and I'm not changing. This is the way I was raised. And I'm not gonna start cursing. I mean, I curse and swear enough, actually, probably already. I'm not gonna change who I am to try to win some votes. I am who I am, brother.
Yes, I apologize. I didn't mean that as an insult. I actually appreciate who you are. I was just speaking generally, just based on what I know of my members. You know, they tend to follow that leadership style, but I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
No, I didn't take it as an insult. I don't know if I'm coming off crass, but
Hey, man, it's totally fine. And like I said, I appreciate who you are. I have been actively involved politically for the last 10 years. In fact, first of all, I just want to thank you for at least doing your due diligence and the research on our issues, speaking with our vice president, speaking with Dusty, and at least making an attempt to understand what it is that we deal with on.
Let me ask you a question now. Has the brother that is also running, that you mentioned, has he had one of these with the 16th district?
He is not.
Okay.
He is not.
All right.
But my next question is, going back to what I was saying previously, I saw you during the rallies in Wisconsin. I supported you via social media. I beat the battle drum for you. I did the same thing when John Kasich was doing what he was doing in Ohio, the same thing when Rick Scott was doing what he was doing in Florida. I get it. I understand it. However, and I think you've spoken to this a couple times, it doesn't always feel like it is reciprocated for us. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the legislative conference in stating that our issues are always pitched last. I have noticed just personally, 3/4 of the membership gets up and walks out. That's a huge problem for us. Even though we're the 16th district, we don't have representation in all 50 states. We rely on our state and municipal counterparts to push our issues. Huge states like New York, California. Now we have a little bit of representation in California, and those guys have the ears of some important congressmen and the speaker. But places like New York, some places in Florida, Texas, we don't have great representation. We need our state and municipal counterparts to push our issues. Otherwise, they continuously just stall out in legislation. In fact, I just had a conversation at Ledge Conference last year, just before COVID happened, with 2 presidents in Indiana and another 2 in Kentucky about why they supported President Trump, even despite me telling them what he was doing to us. And their answer was just, well, I like what he does better. I mean, the union preaches solidarity. I'm about it. I know a lot of the affiliate leaders in the 16th district are about it, but it doesn't always seem reciprocated. And to me, that is indicative of a huge education problem. And I know you've kind of hit that over and over and over again. But I would like to know specifically if you have a plan to educate the other districts regarding the 16th district and how important our issues are in that venue.
Yeah, and I think what I've already said, and I agree with you 100%, brother, is that I've been at the lunch conference where when we had the plenary session back in the day when all our issues were on the docket and they went through them in the order that they were in the book, and towards the end people are leaving. I've been there for that, so I sympathize with that. But I'll tell you again, I think it seems simple, right? These things seem simple that I'm talking about, but it changes the conversation. Something as simple as putting your issue at the front. That seems like, okay, well, what's that got to do? Well, first of all, everyone's in the room. No one's leaving the room because they're waiting to get more educated on the other issues that are coming behind it, right? That's one simple thing that it may not seem like a big deal, but it will be. And it'll be a big deal for a couple of reasons. One is because people will sit there and listen, and they'll have to actually pay attention, or at least hear it. Two, they'll be wondering, they'll be looking around and questioning, like, why the hell are we on the federal firefighter stuff first? So that too will bring more exposure and bring a bigger light to what the hell's going on. But I think we do, as firefighters, at times tend to have blinders on and worry about just what's in front of us. And again, I can only go by who I am and what I've done. And that is, we weren't affected by many laws that changed here in Wisconsin. Matter of fact, we weren't affected by any at the beginning. But we took the blinders off and we realized it's a bigger picture. So if I will fight like hell for other unions and other union members, or at least I hope that I'm going to fight like hell for you, who's actually in our union, who's actually doing the same job I'm doing. So I can only speak on behalf of what I've done and what, I can sit here and I can talk in a big accent and try to promise you a bunch of things and overpromise, underperform, but I'm telling you what I've actually done. Some of the things that I will do to bring this union together so that we are not just, focused on our issues, but issues that are germane to what's happening around us, as well as obviously you guys, you are our members. So you should be in the forefront. And if you talk about numbers and size, I come from a state that has small numbers. We punch above our weight, so to speak, but it's always a concern. It's always an issue, trying to make sure that we're getting the resources and everything we need from the IAFF. But we do it. And so I understand your sentiment. I come from a place of knowing what you're dealing with. We are a right to work state here in Wisconsin. So we're always battling. We're always fighting for something. And we got to fight tooth and nail to get everything we have right now. And not just because of Republicans, but because of Democrats too. And I've already proven that I can do that, and I will do that for you on your behalf. And I still to this day fight for other unions within our AFL-CIO executive board. I sit on the AFL-CIO executive board now in Wisconsin, and have been for the last 8 years. I will fight like hell for you. That's what I can promise you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the answer. And I just want to throw a quick shout out to the VP and Dusty for setting this up as well. So thank you guys.
Great. And now let's move on to a question from the name we just have is Steve on there. But Steve, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
There's a lot of good mustaches in this room, though. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Steve Cass from local F273, Fort Belvoir, Virginia. I had a question for you. What are your thoughts on having term limits for the GP position?
Well, it depends if I win or not. That was a joke, just a joke. I would say, and I've been asked this question before, so I'm not giving you like the old DC dip and twirl here. I would say that for the general president of GST, if you can't do what you set out to do in 10 years, then you're not going to probably do it the next 10 years. So then you're probably off just taking a spot. So I would be open to term limits for the at-large members, so the principal officers, so the GP and the GST. I don't necessarily agree with term limits though for DVPs, because I believe that you, in this case, for the 16th district, you are involved as much as you want to be, or as little as you want to be with your DVP Johnson in this case, and he's doing a job that he set out to do. Obviously, we all don't agree on everything all the time. That's never going to happen anywhere. But you know, and you're more in tune as to if a DVP is doing his job or not, right? And I should take names out because this is something I've said on 2 or 3 different Zooms. But as far as the GP and the GST go, you don't necessarily, I mean, you know we're doing our job, hopefully, and you see the emails. Hopefully you see your investment, you see the payback from your investment, but you don't necessarily, you're not in tune with the GP or GST as much as you are with your DVP, and you're not supposed to be. It's the way it's set up. So you don't know necessarily, you know, when it comes to voting, and it's going to be hard for someone ever to run against, you know, a sitting GP or an incumbent GST. So I'm open to term limits. So that'd be like 12 years, right? 4 terms or 3 terms, 4 years apiece. So 12 years for a GP or GST. So I wouldn't mind putting that before the membership and the membership votes, right, at the convention. But I do not agree with term limits for district vice presidents, though. I don't. But I do agree with, or I am open to it for a GP and a GST race or positions. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
What do you think? What do you think about it?
I think 12 to 15 years is pretty good time. Like you said, if you can't do what you accomplished or what you ran on initially, maybe pass the hat to somebody else. I don't necessarily agree with 20-year regimes and long-term things like that. After a while, I think the union starts puttering out and just staying at a plateau. You're not going any further ahead. I agree with the district vice president. I don't think there should be any term limits on those positions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on to another question from Tasca.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay. I believe you covered this in your opening statement, but I just wanted to reiterate it or clarify it again and make sure I heard you correctly. Would you be supportive of pushing the administration to re-implement partnership agreements and to expand 5 USC 7106B1 topics of bargaining?
Yes, and when I talked about that, it was, you're talking about the, when I was one of the executive orders, correct, that took away some of the subjects of bargaining that you had already identified, and they made them prohibitive. They were permissive.
Yes.
They made them prohibitive subjects. Yes, I would be definitely. That would be one of our top priorities actually for federal firefighters. And we had, like I said earlier, we dealt with that here in Wisconsin with some of our. We get a lot of chiefs from Illinois and Wisconsin that want to take their pension, then come here and get a salary because we can't double dip now, as they call it. That's something that Walker took away from our chiefs here, our members. So you can't leave a job. Like I can't go from Madison and then go be a chief in another municipality and still get my pension and my pay. So we've had a lot of chiefs from Illinois that actually have done that. They've taken some things off the table that were permissive, and they taken some of those articles and made them prohibitive subjects of bargaining. We've actually gone to court, and we've, thank God, got a friendly judge that said, no, you have to bargain over those issues. And we've done some things with our state, Wisconsin Employer Relations Commission, when it comes to permissive versus prohibitive versus mandatory subjects of bargaining. So I understand that issue very well here in our state, because it's been something that Scott Walker tried to take away, but we actually were able to win in arbitration.
Thank you.
All right, now we got a question from Scott Schmidt.
Hi, Scott Schmidt from local F121 Naval District or National Capital Professional Federal Firefighters here at the nation's capital. I'm brand new to this, so I actually stepped into the vice presidency of our battalion a month ago. and now I'm going to convention. So I think one of my biggest issues is streamlining the way the federal government procures services and streamlining funding for us. Funding seems to be a big issue, especially since COVID has hit. I mean, we've been relying on our partnership with the professional Maryland firefighters for, some COVID testing. Our local bought sprayers for our stations because we pretty much don't have any money. So, and most of the legislation I see is geared towards our municipal brothers. And it's kind of frustrating because, when Safer Grants open, we can't apply because we're DOD. So no funds can change hands. But that's something I'd like to see change because we're still firemen. We should still be able to, obtain Safer Grants for staffing, for PPE, for stuff like that. I guess my question is, how could you help us push that portion of the issues?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's, again, recognizing your differences on how funding is. And obviously it's coming through DOD and you have to go through Congress, which is not a good time right now, or I don't see it getting any better in the future when you talk about trying to get money. And I understand also that any money that is coming from the spending when it comes to DOD and Department of Homeland Security is directly affecting you guys and you being able to do your jobs. So when we ask for money, stimulus money, other things, it's taken away from the pot of money that they could use to actually fund the services that you guys provide. I think I saw it down in the chat, but I think the strategic campaigns and us working with the IAFF and trying to look at, and again, reimagine the way we lobby on your behalf and the way that we work with and working with our DVP Johnson and others to be able to put all the resources behind your efforts. And again, I think bolstering and bringing more resources at the IAFF by way of our the Governmental Affairs Division and bringing another staff person on to just look at your fight and look at what you guys are doing in federal level, I think will only help and enhance what you're talking about. But I know when we ask for stimulus money or we're trying to get Safer Grants and other things, we're actually taking away from the pot of money that you guys have to try to do and perform your jobs. So it's quite the conundrum, and that's a big word for me to use, but it's something. Go ahead.
If I remember correctly, DHS budget is different from DOD's budget. So I think the biggest thing is the red tape of actually exchanging the money from DHS to a DOD asset in the fire service or the DOD fire asset services, because probably knowing DOD, they'd take that money and put it somewhere else in another project.
Again, so I think working with strategic campaigns that we have in the IAFF, and that's back at a district level. And using our Fight Back money and Fight Back program for more fights when it comes to members of the 16th district and enhancing what we currently have in Governmental Affairs Division, which I will guarantee you that I will do. And having another staff person that works with Greg will only make us more apt and give us more information as to what you guys need in order to do your jobs. But again, that starts with us backfilling or actually just enhancing what we currently have. And Greg Russell's been a great addition, but we can do better. And that's across the board with all the issues that we talked about already today.
All right, so now we got a question that was submitted via email. This is from Ken Little, president of Robbins Professional Firefighter, Local 107. Is it fair to have to use your sick leave for a national pandemic? Guys are following all mandate, but it seems like they're being punished for contracting the virus.
Is it fair to have to use your sick leave for a national pandemic? The answer is no. I believe in what we've bargained here for and what we try to get in the state is getting 96 hours of emergency leave surrounded around COVID-19. and we've been successful at getting that for a majority of our locals across the state. So I would say the answer is no, it's not fair that you have to use your own sick or accrued leave for any pandemic. Obviously with COVID-19, what we're dealing with now. And so the answer is no.
All right, so I think, folks, that wraps up our questions. I'm just going to run through some close-up items. If something comes to mind, please raise your hand and we will get to it. Again, we'll stay on the line for as long as possible here. Just let us know. So a couple quick things is we will be sending out an email following this Zoom that has a recap information as well as everything that was covered. You will be able to get a recording of the meeting as well if you want to pass it on to other members of your executive board or your local. If you like what you heard tonight.
Throughout the presentation, wonderful.
Oh, okay. Little technical error there. It seems to be the theme of this evening, at least on my end. So a couple things here is that if you liked what you heard tonight, we need your help. Please forward our emails that you get, help spread the message. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's a lot of different ways that you can get connected to the campaign and talk to the other members of your local, talk to the other members in your region, in your state, and let them know about what you heard here tonight and what you're pushing for on the campaign. Additionally, this is a member-driven campaign. So we are asking if folks like what they heard tonight and you want to chip in a quick amount of money, we would greatly appreciate it. Whatever you're able to do. I know times are tight right now with COVID and the holidays, but every dollar that we get will be used to communicate with other members just like yourselves on Mahlon's message, platform, and vision for the IAFF. So we can throw that information in the chat right now if that's something that you are interested in. Additionally, if you have a question that didn't get answered, please email mahlon@mitchell4IAFF.com. That's another way you can communicate with the campaign as well. It looks like we have a couple more questions that hopped up, so let's go ahead and get to Jose Lucero.
Yeah, brother Mitchell, real quick, man. Sorry, something came up. Have you heard of the Army's way of doing a risk assessment? I don't know if you're aware of that. And aggregated response times, ARTS. They're trying to get away from the 7-minute ARTs, aggregated response times, and going to a 7-minute or a 12-minute, excuse me, response time. So that's going to cut down on staffing. What do you say about, or what is your response to that?
I'll be honest with you, brother. I have not heard of that issue at all. If you want to shed some more light on it, please feel free, but I have not heard of that issue.
Yeah, so I have a chief that just came from overseas, and I guess this chief is really in tuned with bigger government, and that's what he just ran with us here at Fort Bliss here in Texas. They did a 5-year analysis of our response calls and seeing what a risk assessment of the Army is, what's going on, what can they, what's the bigger risk? Can they afford to go from 7 minutes to 12 minutes? And if they go to 12 minutes, that's going to hinder us from getting more staffing. I think that's only going to hurt us, not help us. I get it. It's helping the Army with money, but at the end of the day, it's just hindering us and hurting us with staffing. Again, I think the 7-minute response time is a national thing. I don't know if you can further elaborate, or what is it over there in Michigan? You know, I think the 7 minutes is a NFPA standard. Do you agree or disagree?
I would have to, I mean, if you're talking about the standard that we have with NFPA 1710 and what we currently run for us, I understand. But if you're talking about what you're talking about right now is the DODI 6055 or whatever that is.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would have to look further into that, brother. I really would. I don't want to give you just a flippant answer, just answer because you're asking me. I would have to research that further. Basically,
Okay.
but like if you're looking at like time to task analysis, like we did with NIST, when it came like to EMS and fire and everything else, those are things that all have to be done. Obviously, before there's any change, or should be done before any changes are to be made. But again, I think that goes back to time and task analysis and like what the NIST studies that are currently ongoing are.
Right. No, yeah. And it is. It's just something that I guess Army is looking at in the future. Again, it's not going to happen now, but it's just something that, again, cost savings, and it's something that's going to hurt members and, again, staffing future members. Again, like I said, man, it's not probably going to, I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. I already got 18 years vested, but I would hate to see it happen to the guys that barely started less than 5 years and then come to light that it hurts them later on. You know, that's going to just suck for them, you know, just to put it blatantly. And again, if we can keep that 7 minutes and not change that to 12, it's just one of those things that would help our membership. You know, again, it just seems like, I don't think it's just DOD, but I think probably municipal. They're trying to get away with more. You know, do less with more. You know, I think that's just
do more with less.
Yes, exactly. Do more with less. You know, and it seems like that's everywhere.
Not possible.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, sir.
I have that written down, brother, and I will check into that more.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for the question. Let's move on to Vince Culliver.
Yeah, thanks. I thought you were going to squeak by. I think I emailed my questions a little late. Sorry if you hear this other Zoom meeting going on. I'm doing 3 things at one time. I'm Vince Culliver, local F-116 out of Vandenberg in California. Thanks for giving us the time. I had like 3 questions, and I'll kind of summarize 2 of them together for you. PFOS foam and cancer presumptive is a big topic for us, especially with our local president, Charlie Martinez, pushing legislation for cancer presumptive, and PFOS also being a big issue with us. How are you going to work with people across the aisle on that? How are you going to work with the people in DC to make sure that they go, hey, we know these county guys and city guys are going to get it, and these states are going to get it, but the biggest thing is the feds, where PFOS, for me, being 20 years in, is going to be an issue. Maybe not for some of these younger guys, but even then, some of these younger kids that grew up close to our base have PFOS in the water. That affects them too. So that being said, there's a lot of emphasis on PFOS right now. Cancer presumptive falls in that, because then they're going to look at us and go, why are we going to give them cancer presumptive if we give them PFOS? That's going to be a whole lot of what do you call it, claims coming in. That's going to cost us a lot of money. How are you going to work that in and push that issue for us?
Well, I think the IAFF has been, you know, at the forefront of lobbying on that already, in my opinion. I believe not this we didn't have one this year, but the last couple years, talking about PFAS as it relates to federal firefighters. I think that's been one of the issues that's in the issues book, at least. And you look at what the NDAA has right now for fiscal year 2021, and looking at PFAS studies and how it affects us in our gear, also as well as the AFFF foam and how we use the foam when it comes to training and actually on the job. I think that's a great first step in having the research and that done. And I'm on a PFAS committee actually here in Wisconsin that talks about us, the airport firefighters, when they use PFAS and how we use it in structural firefighting as municipalities. So I would continue the work that the IAFF is currently involved in and enhance that again and make sure we raise consensus standards when it comes to our brothers and sisters getting cancer. And I'm actually doing that here in Wisconsin. I'm on our PFAS committee. with our state fire chiefs association, and Republican and Democrats. It's actually a bipartisan committee that's been put together by our governor that I am part of as well. So I would continue those efforts. I mean, IAFF is actually taking a very proactive approach, in my opinion, in our member safety when it comes to PFAS, and leading the charge when it comes to us getting rid of PFAS altogether. Same thing with flame retardants when it comes to furniture and everything else. So I would continue those efforts that we currently have ongoing and enhance them.
All right, awesome. Thank you for the question, Vince. I think Vince has got one more.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for answering that. The other thing I had was it doesn't get brought up a lot. I bring it up because it's an issue that we don't talk about, but or doesn't get talked about a lot. And when you think of federal firefighters, you think of a lot of different things. When you think of firefighting in general, you think of don't trust the truss, or maydays are bad, right? Well, so are sequestration, and so are shutdowns. These affect us greatly. Even though we're doing our job, we put fires out, we go home, back to the station, get called out again to do a medical. We do our job, we come home. Congress and the DC, they can't play right together. They take money from us. 2013, we got sequestration. That sucks. 33% of our pay taken away. How are you going to push that and say, hey, enough's enough? You guys can't mess with guys that are coming in. You got sisters and brothers coming in to work and still getting shut down. We're either getting delayed and paid on a shutdown, or getting money taken away in a sequestration. Whether it's Trump or Biden, either way, how are you going to push that to say, hey, these Fed guys don't need to get messed with? How are you going to push it to say, hey, these guys are important enough to know that they're doing their job, they don't need to be messed with? What are you going to do for that?
That's a good question, brother. You know, as you were speaking, and obviously I was listening, but I was thinking about the same. I know you're talking about sequestration, and it's different than what we're dealing with now with COVID-19 for the most part. But I was thinking about it the same way and trying to correlate that with what we're dealing with now across the entire country, and how our brothers and sisters that are out there, as well as you guys are, when it comes to COVID-19 and being essential workers, and how they've extended essential workers to almost be damn near everybody now. But we are actually the ones, we have to actually come to the fire station. We cannot work from home. We actually have to perform our job no matter what happens, no matter if there's, for you guys, sequestration, no matter if there was a pandemic, no matter if we still have to come, people have to come staff to firehouses, to fire engines, and the ambulances, no matter what, because we're public safety. So I would, again, I go back to, we're all in this together. So to say don't mess with the firefighters is something that we don't just say for federal firefighters. We say that all across the two great countries that we serve. Unfortunately, at least I can speak for us in public safety at municipalities, we cost a lot of times the most when it comes to police and fire. We're probably 75% of any municipality's budget. But what's one of the most important things is public safety in any community. What's most important for you guys? You guys are our homeland security protectors, essentially, and you're protecting our homeland. So the way you do it is, again, it's political action. It's it's having Democrats and Republicans as allies. A lot of our members don't believe we should be involved in politics at all. A lot of members hate politics. I mean, you take the word politics, poly means many, and ticks meaning blood-sucking creatures. So yeah, a lot of our members don't like politics, but that's where the rubber meets the road, man. And so what we'll have to do is we would have to use and utilize every stakeholder we have, which has already been done, and every Democrat or Republican that's on our side. So when it comes to them holding your paychecks, or them sequestration, that they actually realize that the essential workers, the true essential workers, public safety, have to be funded. It's one of my priorities I will work on actually for everybody, and it comes back to pensions. We have some municipalities that take pension holidays. When times were good in 2005, 6, 7, and then 8 came and the crash came, they took a holiday. So then now we're in 2020, and we have municipalities like Milwaukee who has their own pension system. We're saying, well, now, you know, we have an unfunded obligation now because we don't have enough money to fulfill our obligation. So now we need to borrow money, which lowers our bond rating. Well, it's not the firefighters or employees' fault because we paid our portion in. It's the employer's fault as to why the pension fund is hurting. So again, going to one of my bills would be actually to make it or prohibit or make it unlawful or against the law for any federal, state, municipal, provincial government to actually take any pension holidays. So the reason I tell you that is because it goes to your point of we are essential service, public safety. If you don't have a safe community, everything else falls by the wayside. So the message to me is bigger, it's broader than just sequestration. It's about how we as an IAFF message to our elected officials at all different levels.
Appreciate that. Like I said, everything sounds good, but at the end of the day too, remember you brought up getting together and getting more people in the local, but for the feds, we have a 2-year probationary period right now where you could be fired for anything. And right now, a lot of new guys, like our department, we're about to hire 5 brand new guys, and they're worried about, am I really going to be protected by the union? So in a 2-year period, they could be fired. So remember that too. I know it might not have been brought up to you, but that can also hinder our recruitment process. So appreciate you answering questions for us. I had one more question, but I sent an email. You could just kick me back an email too. That'd be great. Appreciate it.
Okay. And I can give you guys can all have my number if you like. My cell number is 608-698-2333. 608-698-2333. And I'll answer questions if you call me as a candidate for general president. I will not go over the head of your esteemed district vice president because he knows a lot more obviously about this stuff than I do. But if you have specific questions about being me running and what I'm about, please feel free to call me. But as far as your particular issues, obviously that goes to your district vice president, who you all know obviously knows more about this than Mahlon Mitchell. I just spoke in a third person. I never do that, but it was kind of fun.
All right.
What else you got, Taylor?
So we're going to do a little wrap up here. If folks have additional questions, raise your hand now, but we'll just run through sort of some closing items quick. So first of all, thank you so much for hopping on the town hall tonight. I think we had mostly everyone for, the first 2 hours of this or so. I think a few people hopped off here at the end. But I think that's just a testament to how much everyone cares about both what's going on with the federal firefighters, as well as wanting to hear and make your voices heard in this race for general president. Of course, in order to do that, 2 things need to happen. 1, you need to register for convention, and 2, you need to make sure that you vote. We can drop the 1-pager back into the chat, Max, if you want to go ahead and do that. But remember, keep in mind that it's never been easier to attend convention. It's only $100. Everything is virtual, and all voting will be done by mail. So be sure to do that sooner rather than later. Also, like I said, if you heard or like what you heard over the course of the evening, please get involved. You can reach out to me, Max, if you want to throw my email in there as well. It's taylor@mitchellforiff.com if you want to get involved. We have a lot of different ways for you to do that, whether it's phone calls to other locals, sharing our content on your social media. Please reach out. The more folks that we get involved, the better. Additionally, like I said, we are looking for contributions. We're asking supporters to contribute something that's significant to you, whatever that is. We are running a continent-wide campaign, and we're communicating with members all over the country, from Canada to Miami and Hawaii, as we saw here, all the way over to New York. And it's not going to happen without your generosity. So we appreciate your consideration in making a contribution to the campaign. I think that's all that I got for this evening. Mahlon, I don't see any more questions. Again, if you want to ask it, feel free to shoot it over to mahlon@mitchellforiff.com, and we will get it wrapped up. But I will kick it over to you, Mahlon, for a close-up.
Well, thank you all for your time. Real quick, one thing that we did not talk about as far as initiatives and policy initiatives and internally in the IAFF. Right now, if you didn't know, the top 100 locals by way of size, they actually are flown out to DC for the most part, two members from every local. As membership changes, as leadership changes, to actually see where their money is going. And they talk to every AGP, they talk to every department head and kind of get a feel for what's happening in different departments. Have dinner with the general president, talk about issues. I would extend that, and I want to extend that, and it's going to take time, but I would extend that to every local, and I would extend that to obviously your locals as and the F locals as far as being federal firefighters. So that in turn, my opinion, only helps the principal officers, because then you go back to your members and convey to what Brother Culver was talking about, Culver or Vince was talking about, is why am I part of an organization? Or why am I paying dues into this organization? I would like to extend that to every local over time, that you would get a headquarters visit paid for by IAFF so you can see where your money's going and you can see where your investment's going and are you investing wisely, and that you can bring that and convey that back to your members back at home. One thing. Another thing is we talked a little bit about my path to victory. There are at any given time 305,000 votes within the IAFF. A lot of you say, well, we got 324,000 members. Well, retired active members are actually half a vote. So there's 305,000 plus votes in the IAFF. By way of what Brother Kelly and myself and the other candidate have right now, there are still 160,000 votes out there. If you go on my website, you'll see my list of endorsements. I've been endorsed by the biggest local that's in our international, in our union, CAL FIRE, as well as some of the smallest locals at international union. And I have many, many commitments coming from Canada, and we have probably 7 or 8 locals endorsements that are in the hopper right now that are just being pushed out daily. We're only doing 2 or 3 a day. And we have many more coming, and some bigger locals actually in Canada that have already committed, but they're going to come on their own time. So I understand what I think is Brother Miller that may have said, some people coming out and worrying about retribution if you back a loser. Well, no one knows. This is a very, very close race. And it's just like anything when it comes to politics. You should back, in my opinion, who you think is the right person for you and your jobs and your families. And that's what politics is about. And anyone that can't understand that, including me, that should be a problem. I've heard from some that say, well, I don't want to back you maybe because I'm worried about what may happen if the other candidate wins. Well, that in itself should cause you to have a alarm and moment of pushback that someone else would hold any sort of grudge against you because you decided to back someone else. But this is an open seat. We're all running for the same seat, but it's open. President Shaper is retiring, so I'm not running against anybody. We're all running against each other. So I just wanted to just make sure that was clear, that there are a lot of votes out there. Obviously, you guys are a strong part of them. A lot of you have not endorsed. I'd love to have your endorsement. I'd love to have your support. But I'll tell you right now, even if I don't have it, and I'm your general president, I'm going to work my ass off for you, because that's what the job requires, and that's what this is about. This union is bigger than one person. It's bigger than Harold Shapeberger. It's bigger than Ed Kelly. It's bigger than Mahlon Mitchell. It's about the members, and it's about the future of this great union and the future of where we see our union, not just for now, but for a very, very long time from now. Hopefully my son gets on. He's 17 years old, and he believes that he can go to the NFL or the NBA. He believes he has a choice. Between you and I'll tell you, he's not going on either of them. But, he's got dreams. But I want to see him get on his job, and I want his job to be better for him when he gets on. So I appreciate all your time. I appreciate the questions. I have some notes here that I've written down from a lot of your questions that I'm going to research, and my team and I will make sure that we put our heads together so that we will add that to our position papers when it comes to federal firefighters. I hope you all go on the website and look at it and let us know what you think. And if you think there needs to be any changes, please feel free to give me a direct call. You have my cell number. And you also have Taylor and Max's information as well. So I'm an open book. My number's not changing. If I become your general president, I will still have the same number. You'll still be able to call the same person. And I plan on being the same person. I don't know who else I would be, but my number has not changed. 608-698-2333. That number comes from when you used to be able to pick your own phone number back in the day. 2333 is Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. That's how I came up with that number. So please, 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 give me a call if you got anything else. And after tonight, give me a holler if you want something to change or you think I need to change something. I'm here for you, always will be. So thanks for your time. And you guys are at work, get some rest and stay safe out there. Signing off. Thank you all.